Hi, I'm Stephanie,
And I'm Justy,
and
and
together
together
we're
we're
losing
losing
it.
it.
We've each lost over 100 pounds with the help of diet, exercise, and breaking bad habits. And I also had weight loss surgery in 2020.
And I recently had skin removal surgery.
We're just sharing our journey and what we've learned throughout the process.
And we're not doctors, so if you have any medical questions, reach out to your doctor.
Welcome back, friends, for another episode. I am here with Justy, as usual, and Sancho, who makes his guest appearances. And if you're watching us on YouTube, you'll see that we are here with Kim Tirapelle, who is a registered dietitian that specializes in, sports nutrition. And I'm going to before I let Kim kind of introduce herself, I do want to quickly, because I'll forget, and I have a note written here, not getting any younger. So before I let her introduce herself, I want to let you know you can also find an episode of Kim and I on Berry Nation's podcast. It was number 173. And then you can also find us on Kim's podcast of Active Bariatric, episode number 42. So Kim, I'm going to let you go ahead and give yourself a quick introduction.
Cool. Hey guys, thanks so much for having me. I appreciate it. And my name's Kim Tirapelle, and as Steph said, I'm a bariatric dietitian, and I specialize in sports nutrition for active bariatric individuals. I've been practicing with that group for about 16 years. I worked in a surgical center for the last 10 years, and prior to that, I was actually a Division One sports dietitian with a large university here where I'm at. And I just found that there was really a missing kind of piece in terms of the bariatric phase where folks that have surgery, they now want to, maybe incorporate strength training, or they want to run a marathon or whatever that might be, movement goals. And there really wasn't a lot of information out there. And really, there's not a lot of research in that area. And so, having had a lot of the sports nutrition experience and then having worked my entire clinical career with bariatric individuals, I decided these two things need to merge. And they're both areas that I have passion on. And so in 2022, I left my full time clinical position and I opened up my own private practice, Active Bariatric Nutrition, where I work one on one with active bariatric individuals who want to optimize their nutrition to meet their new fitness and movement goals. So it's been great.
That's awesome. So, which I knew all of that because I've been following Kim. Once I found Kim, I'm trying to think of how I found you first. It was your podcast, or was it your Instagram? I think I saw somebody else maybe was on your podcast, and then I started doing some digging. I was like, oh, this is cool. And then I listened and I was like, Justin, you gotta listen to this episode. I'm like, just go back to the beginning and listen to them all. So, and then I started binging them. And I just got really interested because I know that for Justin and I, we know, anytime you meet somebody who is like a personal trainer or a dietitian that does, has anything to do with like sports nutrition, they are like meathead people. Like they are just
Right.
like people who have been like fit their whole life. And Justy learned this in doing her, she's training to become a body pump coach. And the people she runs into in the class that she did, they're like all like fitness people. And 5 years ago, we were not fitness people. We went to body pump classes and we struggled our way through them with our knees a crackling and everything else. And, and it's not, yeah, we still do crackle, but it's taken us a long time to get to where we are. But if you don't understand, then you don't understand. And it's just that simple. So when we find like our people who get obesity and get the struggles of bariatric folks. And when I say bariatric, me being surgical, Justy being non-surgical, I think we know bariatric in that sense. People who get us, get us. So when we find our people, Justy will be like, listen to this person. And I'll be like, listen to this person. So we're always like back and forth with who we should listen to and what the hot topic is. And so when I found you, it was just like, it was a gold mine for us. So very excited to have you. And I knew I was like, oh, we're going to get her on. But then when I was on, we did the Berry Nation podcast together, which was great. And then I joined one of yours, and that was great too. So we're just in the same realm, and it's fun that way.
Absolutely.
But what we wanted to talk about today, because here we are in the new year. Well, as we're recording, we're not quite there yet, but we're about to be in the new year. And while Justy and I ourselves don't make New Year's resolutions, we set goals for the year. a lot of people do make New Year's resolutions. And if it's not necessarily a resolution, it's a goal like we have. And a lot of times people are really aggressive in New Year's resolutions where it's like, I'm going to work out 7 days a week. I'm going to go to the gym 3. I'm going to run 2, and I'm going to bike 1. Is that 7? I don't know.
Yeah.
Anyway, but you get it, like however they add it up. And then I'm
Right.
going to meal prep every day, and I'm going to have our favorite boiled chicken, steamed broccoli, and brown rice. And it's just like, by the time we get to January like 7th, they're over it. And it's not sustainable. So what we wanted to bring you on today was to talk about the sustainability of it. Like, how do people get started? Like if you had a client come to you and they were like, okay, it's the new year, I'm fed up with, where I've been, and I want to get started. Let's talk. I mean, obviously you're not giving anyone like a plan or anything, but like they decided, like they set a realistic goal for working out. I'm going to walk, 2 days a week and try to make it to the gym 1 day a week, which is way more realistic for a start. How would I fuel myself? How would I get myself started? Or they want to do a couch to 5K and they want to build themselves up to become a runner. They've never run before and it's a goal for 2024. Like when people come to you brand new, never really worked out before, like how would you help somebody in that sense?
Yeah, no, it's a great question. And I agree with you that I think we kind of all bite off more than we can chew at the beginning of the year because it's like, oh, it's just like this fresh start kind of thing, in terms of, like this is the day that I need to now just completely overhaul everything I'm doing. And yeah, like you said, it's not realistic. Typically, when someone comes and starts with me, I always start with where they're at, what's worked, what hasn't worked, and what is one small thing we can do in terms of either it's their nutrition or whether it's their movement. I particularly focus obviously more on nutrition as a dietitian, but I do talk to them about their movement goals and see, what is one, maybe one more day that you have been doing, if that's realistic, one more thing that, like you said, starting with 2 days a week of walking and 1 day a week in the gym, or maybe we just start with, I'm just going to start with walking for a little bit, whatever it might be that they can just begin with to get some momentum going. In terms of a nutrition, when I work with folks, I always establish kind of their baseline. So when we first start working, we just make very small changes initially because it's not realistic to go from, let's say someone comes and they're like, oh, I can take in, now around 1,200 calories. I'm just throwing some number out. I'm never going to be like, yeah, well, really, your body needs 1,800 based on, your movement goals. We're just going to go right to that. No, we would do it very incrementally. So I would start with a very small increase that they feel comfortable with. And we would make some very small changes in their nutrition. Maybe that means adding 1 ounce of protein at each meal. And maybe that means adding in, a serving of carbohydrate, like 15 grams. But it's going to be very small at first, because again, as we were saying, if you set these ginormous goals and you're already off track after week 1, I mean, they're gone, right? And so I think the best piece of advice is just making one small goal that you can achieve and say, okay, once I do that, now what can I do? And we try to add to that and we just build, because you're still taking steps forward. And I think folks kind of look at goals that like, it has to be this all or nothing kind of, thing. And you don't realize that those very small changes that you're making are adding up, and they're adding up to this bigger picture that maybe you can't see right now, but it helps and it matters. And so taking those small incremental steps is always where I begin.
And that's interesting that you said that, because Justy, that's your thing. You preach it all the time to people. Just pick one thing. What is your like one thing that you can do today?
And in the bariatric surgery world, you were talking about adding protein here, adding a few more calories. And for someone who's eating more calories than they need, they're wanting to bring it back. Like me, it was one step at a time. So can I just leave 2 bites back? Can I just, substitute this pizza with 1 piece of pizza and salad? Can I just do, so you can either, when you're a bariatric patient, kind of build up to the calories you need to fuel yourself. But when you're not, you can kind of slowly subtract things to get to more healthy choices too.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I think like healthy swaps, like getting the more complex carbs in instead of eating that Reese's cup on your drive home from work. Like, what can we swap that out with that? Yeah, you still need, because man, I can't say it enough. Carbs are not the enemy. They're just not. And you already know me and my bananas, Kim.
Right.
So, carbs are not the enemy, but they're right carbs. It's the right carbs, the right mix of them. and how do you use them, incorporate them correctly into your diet. So yeah, for someone who's trying to lose weight, it's what 2 bites can you leave behind? And somebody like a bariatric folks who are trying to work out, it's like, how do you incorporate small amounts of carbs and the right carbs? So when it does come to carbs, since we're on the hot topic,
Yeah.
what are I'm gonna let you just talk a little bit about carbs, because for folks in the bariatric world, I mean, when I came out of surgery, they didn't say anything about, they didn't give us really a calorie outline. They were adamant about carbs. How do not go over this many carbs, which is why we're all scared to death of them. So let's talk about somebody maybe that comes to you as new to exercise, whatever, and now they have to add carbs in, and they're, well, keto is the way, and that's all that I know. Like, how, talk to the importance of carbs in when you're becoming more active.
Yeah. Well, carbohydrates are the main energy source of our muscle. And so when we are trying to increase our overall movement, whether that just be increasing our walking, maybe that's, we want to cycle, we want to start lifting, we want to swim. I mean, whatever it might be, it doesn't matter what classes you go to. It does not matter. Your muscles require carbohydrate for that. And so, especially at moderate to higher intensity levels. So if you're like, oh, you work out and you're always just like hitting the wall and you're like, gosh, what the heck? I can only make it like 10 minutes. Or another sign that like you need more carbohydrate is you don't recover well. Maybe you feel tired and weak and sore all the time. You're not sleeping well. If you're getting sick more frequently, that can also be a sign of inadequate carbohydrate intake or overall energy intake. And so I try to, tell folks we don't have to make huge jumps. We have to find what's the right amount for you. And so, regardless of whether you've had bariatric surgery or not, this applies to any athlete that I've ever worked with. What level are you coming in at? Where can we make some additions? And no matter what, like I said, whether it's a bariatric individual or someone that hasn't had surgery, I would start with, can we throw in an extra 15 to 30 grams of carbohydrate pre-workout so that we're giving that muscle an energy source to draw upon within about an hour or two ahead of that workout? Or can we look at your meals? Is there, can we add in an extra serving of maybe 1/3 of brown rice or whatever it might be? Maybe you add a waffle in the morning or you add a piece of toast or some oats. I mean, whatever it might be that you enjoy, fruit, vegetable, whatever. And so we make those small additions, whether it's at just a snack or we try it at the meals, and we see how that makes you feel before we try any more. So I always just try to, like I was saying at the beginning here, you don't have to do everything at once. Just pick one area to add it in, see how that makes you feel. Maybe that's all you need. You know what I mean? And then we can adjust elsewhere. Because I think because of carbs getting such a bad rap in society in general, that like the only way to be successful in weight loss, regardless of if you've had surgery or not, is to have as minimal carbohydrate as possible, I think has really done a disservice to, the population. Because for those of you that are then trying to be more active, you're living in this low carbohydrate lifestyle where you just feel tired all the time. And that's really, takes away the motivation to keep doing it because you don't feel good, And so it plays a very, very critical role in you being able to move your body day in and day out.
And so, Justy, I think we talked about this in a podcast before, where we said, it was when we started the season out, and you were like, if for, I think it was like October, you focus on getting your sleep in, and November, you focus on getting your water in, and December, you focus on, meal prepping or getting your meals correct or sticking to your plan or whatever. I think the same applies when you start the year out. If you're starting from scratch, you're starting from, it's New Year's. Because for me, anyone who doesn't know already, my story started with New Year's Eve, because I got 2018 New Year's Eve. I got dressed up. I had this dress on. Of course, my husband's like, oh, you look beautiful. You look great. My friends, but I didn't feel great. And that's the day that I decided that I was going to seek out help. And I went, I want to say a week later, to a seminar for bariatric surgery. So New Year's Eve was the day for me. And it happens to, I think, a lot of people where it's just this time of year, it's like, from Thanksgiving to Christmas or whatever holiday you celebrate, you get through all that, you get through New Year's, you can breathe, and then you can start to like evaluate yourself. And that's really where I think that's where resolutions came in, where people decide, like, I drank way too much, I have to slow this down, or I feel like I need to get my eating under control. So everyone's got that thing that they want to do. So if we just start slowly, pick that one thing, and maybe the one thing is walking 2 days a week. We'll start with that. This week, we're going to walk 2 days. Next week, we'll try to go for 3 days. So picking that one thing, working on the nutrition, whether it's needed as a bariatric, you need to increase a little bit more, or non-bariatric where you need to bring it back a little bit, like then slowly start to incorporate that. I think another key, there's two more keys that I want to hit on, that's sleep and water, but let's talk for a minute about hydration, and I guess the importance of hydration too, because now, we're getting into our routine. We've set some goals. We're getting into our routine. We are doing that walk two maybe 3 days a week. And maybe we're starting to jog a little because we're trying out the Couch to 5K. Talk a little bit about hydration and where someone who's new with working out and maybe someone who's been working out, but they really need to up their game.
Yeah. I typically give the rule of thumb is to try to drink half of your weight in pounds in your fluids. So, for example, if you are 150 pounds, you drink 75 ounces. If you're 200 pounds, you want to aim for about 100 ounces. That's about the minimum amount per day you want to aim for that's going to keep us hydrated. Another way to track kind of, what you're losing in your workouts, because for some folks, if they're really heavy sweaters, they come into the workouts pretty hydrated and they sweat a lot in their workouts. They don't realize that they might be losing 2 or 3 pounds in sweat, just from fluid loss in your sweat. And so the rule of thumb there is for every 1 pound lost in sweat, you want to rehydrate afterwards with 16 to 24 ounces of fluids. And so it's not as critical for someone that is maybe, lower intensity workouts or even lifting. Typically, it's going to be more critical, especially for folks that are doing more endurance activity. Dehydration really plays a more critical role in decreasing overall performance if you are dehydrated. And that gets worse if you are in extreme temperatures. So in very hot, humid environments, fluids play a really important role. I know we're kind of in winter right now, so we're probably not thinking about that. But I just remind folks that fluids play other roles too, besides just making sure we come into our workouts hydrated. Remember too that it helps us in between meals to feel more full. It's helping us with digestion. It's helping us with preventing constipation. Fluids are so important in so many roles. I mean, that's what our body is primarily made of, fluid, right? Water. So we really need to make sure that it's at the forefront, because whenever I start working with folks, of course, we're going to talk about calories and, what we're eating and, your meals and all those things, but fluids kind of take a back seat. And so I try to really emphasize it plays a very critical role in whatever goal you might have in the new year. So fluids, very, very important. And I would just say this too, and you guys, please tell me how you get your fluids in. But, for some folks, changing the temperature of the fluids can help to increase overall intake, adding in some flavored, powders, things like that. Where I would caution people is when they're drinking like liquid IV all day long. That's probably too much in terms of electrolytes and things. But products like Ultima, those are going to be a little lower in overall electrolytes, but they just add a flavor, and that can help stimulate more intake. And that's a beneficial thing.
Yep.
I'm a plain water girl. I can just drink plain water all day long. And I do, but there are a lot of people out there who do not like plain water.
Yeah.
Steph's one of them. Like she'll chug some water in the morning, but the rest of the day she gets her hydration through like a vitamin water.
Right.
What else do you drink? You drink vitamin water?
So I have a whole routine, and as a bariatric person, this is as a having surgery, it is hard to get your fluids in. It is no joke, because everything has to be timed, and you have to 30 minutes before, 30 minutes after. So I wake up, I take with me, I don't have it with me over here, but it's like a Starbucks reusable cup, and it's 24 ounces. I take that of plain water to bed with me. So it's sitting on the headboard. It's sitting on there. So when I wake up in the morning, I just start. I don't allow myself to have coffee until I finish that water. And that's incentive in itself. So
Yeah,
I'll be at the Nespresso machine over there getting it ready. And I'm like, chugging it down, trying to get it, because I know I can't have that coffee till I get it. So I get 24 ounces in like immediately before I take, my daughter to school or anything else. I get that 24 ounces in. If I don't do that, I promise you I don't hit my goal. I never do, because my coffee, I'm kind of a sipper on my coffee. I'll have that for a good hour, that I'll just sip on it throughout the day or throughout like an hour or so. So once that's done, I have a cup. Everything has a different cup. This is my flavored. I do a pitcher in the fridge of a different flavor. I pick one that we all like. I've got like a grape one. I have a fruit punch and like a watermelon lemonade. I do a different flavor of a no sugar that I keep in the fridge and I can refill everybody's cup with. Well, they refill their own, I refill mine, but I have one flavored, and then I brew decaf green tea and peppermint tea mixture because I like the Starbucks green tea. So I brew my own decaf of that. So I'll have one big cup like that of that, this one of the flavored, and then another 24 ounces of plain water, and then we'll often refill this one a second time, or at least get like halfway through it, and that is just meeting my goal. And my husband's always like, that's too much. I'm like, no, it's not. Because I don't ask me how he gets by, because he's like this, and he doesn't drink enough water. He doesn't eat properly. I don't know how he does it. His metabolism, he's going to get old one day and it's all going to go to shit. But for now, he just, I mean, and he does exercise quite a bit, but it's just like he doesn't drink the right amount of water. He doesn't eat the right food, and still he manages to get by. That's a whole separate podcast, because men are lucky, I swear. But I'm over here struggling to meet my minimum, but that's the only way I'll do it. If I don't drink that plain 24 ounces first, I just can't get there.
And I was going to say too, like soups, stews, fruits, yogurts. I mean, foods that have a high moisture content too, that counts too. I mean, I know, especially in the bariatric world, we're very focused on water fluid ounces, like measuring it. And that's great, especially early out when you're so restricted and it's very difficult to get the fluids in when you're trying to take, time 30 minutes before your meals and things like that. But, those things count too. And so for folks that, are just like, oh, I hate water. I'll say, okay, well, like you were saying, herbal teas, things like that, different flavors, adding it in different ways. Like we said, like soups and stews and fluids from foods and things like that, smoothies, shakes, that kind of stuff can also help. And it just, what's good about electrolyte, adding that a little bit into your fluids, is besides if you are moving and you're losing that in your sweat, I would want you to take in one that has higher, but just for standard day-to-day drinking, salt increases our thirst, right? And so that little addition to your water can actually drive you to drink some more. And so that can be helpful for increasing your overall fluid intake, is just that additional sodium basically found in electrolyte powders and things that can help drive more intake.
And I do where I was drinking just plain water all the time. I don't put salt in my food either, really. I just don't like salt.
Right.
And I was having like weird heart things going on, like palpitations. And my doctor was like, how much water do you drink? And blah, blah, blah. And he's like, just add some salt.
Yeah.
And I did, and it all went away. So drinking too much water, not enough salt in my
drink. If you're just drinking, if you have a low sodium intake and then you're just drinking water, that can suppress your sodium levels in your blood. And so I'll get some folks that'll say, they get like heart palpitations, they get dizzy. And so they have to have the higher sodium, type of products. And then for those that are salty sweaters, if you work out and you notice a white brim on your hat or your shirt, your neck, your forehead, etc., down the sides of your face when you're done working out, that can mean that you're a salty sweater. And that is definitely for someone that would want to incorporate more sodium into their overall diet.
Yeah. And that's me. I do get the crust. I get the funk. And when I do work out, or if I go to the gym or I go for a run, in addition to all those other things I drink, I do a Gatorade Zero. I actually have the little packets that I just mix in water and I shake it up in my bottle, and I'll drink that. If I go to the gym, I'll take that with me there. If I go for a run, I'll drink that when I get back. So that's usually when I work out. That's my other addition, because I know, listening to you, I have to replace what I use. And when I work out, it's typically some form of cardio. If I go to the gym, it's usually body pump or the treadmill. And if I'm here running, then and all of that's got some cardio in it. So I know I have to replace.
And I think it's an interesting mentality that some people have too, where they go from not drinking hardly any water all day or hydration to I'm drinking a gallon a day from January 1st. Well, you're setting yourself up for failure. And another interesting mentality that I've heard recently is that, well, if I drink that much, I'm going to go to the bathroom all the time. You're supposed to go to the bathroom. Like, that's good for you. It's just weird, like, mindset of people, because I drink water throughout the night. Even I get up in the middle of the night and I'll chug water because I'm just thirsty. And I do go to the bathroom multiple times a night, but I'm not dehydrated.
Yeah. I mean, I would just say like anything else, when I say, oh, half for like the bariatric clientele where I might say, half your weight in ounces of fluids, that sounds like a big goal for most folks. They're like, oh, wow, that's a lot more fluid than I'm used to drinking. I'm used to drinking that 64 ounces that I'm told by my surgical center. But, again, you don't have to do that overnight. And I hear that too. I'm drinking a gallon a day. I'm like, that's 128 ounces. And for most people, that might be more than they may need. Now for some that sweat a lot or they're working out, maybe that's just the right amount, but it's not easy. And, I would just suggest, okay, if you're at 64 right now, why don't we try to go to 75? And then, 85 and I mean, just small incremental things. I just had a client real quick tell me her goal this past week that we had for her fluid intake was she made her fluid bottles in the morning because she works at a gym herself and she carries with her all the fluid for the day so that she knows I've got to drink both of these. She has like, I think 48 ounces because she drinks 96 ounces. And she knows that come hell or high water, these both have to be done by the time I go to bed. And so she distributes that, however she gets it in. And that's worked for her. So it might be something that you think about.
When I first started drinking water, I wasn't a water person. I drank a lot of soda back in the day. I call it pop, but I get laughed at for that. So I used to drink a lot of pop and or iced tea, a lot of caffeine to keep me going. And that's what I did. I was like, okay, I have these 32-ounce things of water. I'm going to fill up 3 of them in the morning and I'm taking that shit with me in my backpack and I'm just going to drink it. And if I don't have it by the end of the day, I'm just going to chug it. And now I just don't really like anything but water. At first it was torture. Yeah. But now you just get used to it. Your body knows what you should be. Your body likes that. Right. It doesn't like soda. Cause if I drink a pop now, it's just, I just can't.
I'm from the Midwest,
crazy
so I like to say pop. Just sorry, I had to just add that. I'm a pop girl too, so
nice.
I'm with you.
You weirdos.
I know.
It's crazy how, excuse me, how your body feels like how I'll feel differently. I went out, I guess it was a week or so, maybe 2 weeks ago. I went out one night over the weekend and I drank more than I typically do. I had a really good night though, but I woke up feeling like crap the next day. And then I barely drank water. I definitely drank coffee, barely drank water. And the following day, I was dragging. And I was like, I feel worse the day after than I did the day after drinking because I was like, I'm so dehydrated right now, just simply because I didn't get the water because I didn't feel good from the night before. It's like, dang, the lasting effects of having a couple margaritas really take you down anymore. Welcome to 47, right?
Right.
So, but yeah, when I don't get my hydration, it's not a good scene. I feel like crap the next day.
Also, another thing that I think is interesting about us this year for sure, last year pretty much, but this year for sure, I don't have that intensity of, oh my God, January 1st, I have to fix all these things because I pretty much live my life in maintenance, stay hydrated. I don't let the holidays get to me. I just sort of roll with it. Just because it's November, December doesn't mean I do anything different than I did in July. And so I don't have that anxiousness to be like, oh, January 1st, I have to do all these things. So if you work to get yourself in a slow and steady just lifestyle, you don't have that torture like I used to have every January when, I gained 20 pounds in 2 months.
Yeah.
Yep. Totally agree. And then I guess the last part to all of that is the sleep part, which can, going through the holidays, if you're fortunate enough to be where Justy is, where she's worked on all of these pillars of weight loss, we'll call it, or just weight maintenance, because that's where we are now, which is so bizarre. We were talking about that the other day. Like, this is our first year that we're not like, we don't have a goal to like lose anymore. Weight. We're just trying to be right where we're at. And that's really strange. But it took a long time to get there, just years and years. And for Justy, without surgery, even more. But years of us working on this. And since I've known her, it's what we've worked on.
Yeah.
And sleep is one of them. But if you're going through this holiday, went through the holiday season of like, I got to buy all these gifts and I have to, as a people pleaser, and you have to get everything, you have to do all the things, and I have to attend this party, and the kids have this and their teacher and a party. And that, if you go through all of that and you neglect your sleep, that's yet another thing that you have to build on come January 1st, when you set these goals or resolution or whatever the case is. So as we're slowly incorporating things back, do you have any recommendations around sleep, on what you recommend people get for sleep for like health benefits?
Yeah, I mean, 7 to 8 hours is what typically is recommended for an adult. And I'll just comment on the fact of how important it is for sleep, especially if you are, you have, whether it's weight loss goals, weight maintenance goals, you are wanting to move your body more. Sleep is incredibly important for recovery. So when you are working out, that is overnight is when growth hormone is secreted. That's where we're going to be healing. That's where we're creating new muscles, tissue. And so if we're not getting adequate sleep, you can't recover adequately from your workouts, which means you're not going to get the most out of them. Also, I'll just say too, that what we're finding in terms of sleep is that when we're in sleep deprivation, we have increased hunger cravings, specifically more for carbohydrates or high fat foods. And so what happens is when we're in that sleep deprivation state, it's like we're fighting with our own body, because now it's like, okay, well, now I'm kind of hungry. And it's like, well, is that because am I actually hungry, or am I just kind of craving that because I'm just freaking exhausted and I'm totally sleep deprived? That all plays a role. And so it makes it more challenging then if you are trying to lose weight or maintain your weight loss or be more active. It's just a vicious cycle. So what I've had some folks, in terms of goal setting around sleeping, when I work with my clients, we'll talk about, okay, what are your typical cycles right now? Is there something at nighttime that can help you to, wind down sooner? Maybe an hour sooner we start kind of winding down. We're not maybe on our phone, or we're not running around doing crazy things. We're starting to slow down. Maybe we're reading a book, turning off like blue light, things like that might stimulate our brain to stay awake and reduce our melatonin production. All those things, and they've talked a little bit about like tart cherry juice at night can be a helpful sleep aid. It's takes about 4 to 6 ounces of that to really help with the melatonin production. But that's something that some folks have worked with and actually helps with recovery as well. So I've had some clients use that as a tool. But ultimately, I just try to encourage folks, hey, what is a way to get our body to kind of slow down at night, and really trying to be firm with our boundaries around like, hey, I'm trying to set this at 9 p.m. Things are shutting down at 9 p.m. And that might mean kids are going to bed or reading or whatever that is for you. And really try to set a sleep schedule that you can be consistent with on most days of the week, meaning try to be around the same go to sleep and wake up time if you can.
I'm
Yeah.
on such a sleep schedule. I typically go to bed at like 9:30 because I'm up in the mornings because I have bakery, so I'm up early. And I went to a concert on Friday night, and that thing didn't start until 8.
Oh.
I got home at 11:30. I was wrecked the next day. I just could not function.
Yeah.
And I was like, I don't know how I did it in my 20s and 30s. I mean, I prided myself on working sleeping like 5 hours a night, probably drank a little too much and that sort of thing. But to me, sleep is more important than any social life, anything. Just, I love my sleep.
I'm the same.
Yeah.
What's that saying where they said like when we're all young, we all like punishment was like not being able to go out and like having to like go to bed early. And now I'm 44. I'll be 45 in June. And I'm like, I want to go to bed early. I don't want to stay up late. Like that's like my dream night. I'm like, oh my God, I get to go to bed at 9. Good night. See ya.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. And we have the battle with my daughter where and it was last night again. Her bedtime is 9:00, but she struggles with going to sleep. And she went to bed 9:00. My husband and I went to our room. We just were like folding laundry and stuff, had the door closed because we're like talking as we're folding laundry. 10:00, come out of the room, go to check on her. Lights on. She stood up reading a book. We're like, what the hell, man? You have school in the morning. Like, what are you doing? And it's just like, God, what I would give to be her right now. Like bed at 9 and someone else is going to fold my laundry. Yeah. Sign me up,
Right.
But she just will not sleep. And then She used to want to sleep in the morning, but not anymore. So yeah, those roles will, we told her like one day you're going to want to take that nap. One day you're going to love this, but
Yeah.
now's not the time. But
No.
yeah.
I was just
Um,
thinking, oh, go ahead.
I had a question for you, because I wake up at like 5:30 in the morning, sometimes 6, and I work out within a half hour of waking up. So I get up, throw my clothes on. I don't have coffee. Well, so I used to not have coffee, anything. I just would go work out, come home, and then I would eat.
Mhm.
I found myself during my workouts getting a little lightheaded, a little dizzy. So I started eating like a banana. I don't take a pre-workout or anything like that. I tried them for a short time, don't like them. But I do a banana now, and water. Like for somebody who only has like 30 minutes before they start working out, what is the best option for them? Someone like me.
Yeah, I mean, any of those, any quick digestible carbohydrate rich foods. So we've got applesauce pouches, bananas. I mean, fruit in general is fine. Some people will just do a handful of some dry cereal, pretzels, toast. Those are kind of fruit chews, things like that, graham crackers. So quick digestible carbohydrates. And so that means like not real high fiber. So you don't want to, if like this was later in the day, you don't want to have like a big salad pre-workout because that's not giving you anything. It's high fiber ranch
Mhm.
dressing or whatever high fat that can slow things down. So you want to just try to get something small. And alternatively too, some folks just drink a sports drink,
Mhm.
that have some carbohydrate to them. So like the G2 will have 8 grams of carbohydrate and the regular Gatorade has 14 grams per serving. They both have the exact same amount of electrolytes, so you don't have to worry about that. But for someone that's, okay, I don't want to have a full blast, my workout's kind of low to moderate intensity, even just the small amount of carbohydrate that you get in a G2 is giving you something. And then my other thing is just make sure that at your meals throughout the day and the night before, you incorporate carbohydrates into your food because your body will, store the carbohydrate that you don't necessarily need right at that moment in your muscle cell, and that way you'll have that energy source. But if you're feeling lightheaded, that probably means for you having a small amount of carbohydrate to stabilize your blood sugar as you begin moving would be helpful.
Yeah. Okay, good. So a banana is good.
Yeah.
Something like perfect. And
And some
then
people like sports products too. I'll just say, like some people like the gels and the goos and the honey stingers and that kind of stuff. And that's fine too. It just really depends on what you like and tolerate.
I'm a pretty I like food. So
Mhm.
I
Yeah,
don't a lot of
I'm the same.
mixed drinks and processed and bars and stuff like
Yeah.
that. I mean, I've eaten them in the past, but they're just not my like I'd rather eat a banana or
Yeah.
apple or whatever. Like
Mhm.
food, real food, not in a package is kind of where I've been going lately. And then what about like after my workout? So
Mhm.
because I know I try to eat like 30 grams of protein each meal and then
Mhm.
some during my snacks. So should I eat that right after I get like when I get home, or what's the best time to kind of eat the protein? I've heard so many things. So
Yeah, it's a great what I always try and teach my folks is number one, most important for recovery and meeting your goals is your overall protein intake in a day. Okay.
gotcha.
Then the distribution and the timing are the next kind of layers in terms of the hierarchy of importance. So, but
Mhm.
number one is we got to make sure we're getting adequate protein in the day to meet whatever the goals that you might have. So, in terms of timing, though, it is important. And because what you don't want to do is, let's say especially in your case, you get up early, you work out right away, you've been fasting all night, right? Because you're sleeping, and that's okay. So if you can have something with some carbohydrate, a small amount pre-workout, that's great. And then if you can within an hour or so after your workout, you want to try to get in, if you can get, I generally say 20 to 40 grams of protein and at least 30 grams of carbohydrate. So that's a banana, for example. I'm not saying you have to have 2 bananas, but
Right.
one, but I know you could do something different. You could have Greek yogurt. You could have a lot of people do overnight oats or oatmeal, toast. Some people will do like an egg wrap. So the tortilla would be the carbohydrate, fresh fruit. And so if you can, you want to get both carbohydrate and protein in the recovery window because you need to put both back in to optimize your recovery. Also, of course, your fluids as well. So 20 to 40 grams of protein. So that could be like a protein shake or like you eat eggs or, you put
Yeah.
whey protein in your overnight oats or whatever. And then paired with some carbohydrate.
Nice. Okay. Yeah. So I'm right on track then.
Yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
like,
And
I
then,
always tell folks if it's like you had something to do and you went to your workout and you had to go right to work, it's not the end of the world. It doesn't mean you won't recover if you eat it 1 hour and 3 minutes. Like it's not,
right.
that like, oh my gosh, do or die. As long as you get some nutrition in within the first hour to two after your workout, that's starting that recovery process. So you ideally want to do that, but the world doesn't end if you don't meet it, within 60 minutes. It's okay.
And
Try
do
to get
you
in.
suggest, I know that you're more on the nutrition side, but when somebody, is it like their physical activity? Do you find that you like your clients to kind of balance it out? Like I do a lot of weights because I like to have strong muscles. So I do a lot of strength training, and I hate cardio. Like I just don't like it, and so I don't really do it other than my body pump classes. Is there a too much of one, to not enough of the other, or is just activity, and whatever you enjoy, do it?
Yeah, I mean, it's going to really come down to what your goals are. If you're trying to build strength and power, and for women, I can't emphasize the importance of resistance training enough, because I think a lot of women think, oh, I don't want to lift because I'm going to get bulky, or I'm going to get on the scale and the number is going to be higher. Muscle is critical for our metabolism, and especially our mobility and our health overall as we age, is keeping as much muscle mass as we possibly can, because naturally as we age, every decade, our muscle mass is decreasing over time, and that's not good. So I'm a huge fan of resistance training, whether that be 3-4 times a week or more. That's going to be based on your goals, your level of, experience, that kind of thing. In terms of cardio, I would just say they've shown the benefits of it doesn't have to be this high intense, like, stairmaster sweating it out, whatever. You can do low intensity level walking. It can be elliptical. It can be any of those machines. It doesn't matter, but do something that you enjoy. And I think that's kind of the key piece too, is finding something that you can actually keep doing, right?
Right.
When I hear people are like, this workout was killer, I hated every second. And then I just think to myself, but will they keep doing that? Probably not, because it sucks,
Right.
and it's like, why don't you try to find something that you like, that you can keep trying to improve upon or build upon, and start there. So to answer your question, I don't have the perfect answer. I know um, you know, the Academy of Sports Medicine will talk about, I believe it's 3 to 4 times a week of strength training is recommended. And then it's like 150 minutes of movement a week. So that's, it can be walking, running, whatever
Mhm.
cardio you enjoy.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
It's
That's a
interesting.
good balance.
I think
About balance. Yeah.
the whole the whole base of what we're all talking about is slow, what we like, small changes, move slowly, have patience, don't have too lofty of goals. It's funny because I have 5 bakeries, and our slowest month is January. And then by Valentine's Day, it's our busiest month because everybody's giving up on the no sugar thing. So
Yeah.
it's like, what can I do that I can maintain?
Yeah.
And if that's no carbs and that works for you, I'm not telling you not to do it, but you're different. And you got to find out and be patient with yourself and be the doctor of your own self and diagnose what you're doing, and come up with a different regiment and switch and ebb and flow. And like we talked about our last podcast, is pivot what you're doing. If it's not working, diagnose it, research it, see what you're doing, and try something else. And it's no big deal to try something.
And I'll just
Yeah.
add to that. I think consistency with whatever it is that you want to do is key. If you're consistently doing resistance training, and of course there's all these beautiful programs out there and things that you can be doing. And I'm not saying you should. I mean, if you can work with a professional in that area, whether it's nutrition or with, personal training, things like that can help you, great. That's awesome. Use those resources. But my point is be consistent with whatever it is that you decide to do. Because what I see, like you said, is we go out of the gate hard and we're like 5-7 days a week, and no one can sustain that, because real life happens and shit happens. We get sick, or we got kids, we got things in life, work, job, stress, life, death, whatever. It happens. And I find that the folks that have the most success in the long term are the ones that set goals that they could stick to, that they did consistently each week. It may not be perfect. Some days maybe only 30 and not 60. Who cares? You moved your body. That's awesome. You focused on, hey, at every meal, I may not get to 30 every meal. That's okay. I got to 22. I got to 25. I ate protein. That's awesome. So my
Right.
point is be consistent with whatever that might be, and the degree of which you're able to, do it perfectly every day. That's not as important as just doing it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I agree. Totally agree. And for me, so running has been my thing the last year that I really have focused on. I don't love running. I really don't. I like how I feel after I do it. I like the goal of doing it because it's easy. I don't need a gym to do it. All I need is the pavement outside.
Yeah.
But I've never grown to actually love it, but I love how I feel. I love the goal of it. I love the I guess the social aspect of it and doing races and not that I'm ever racing to win anything, but like I just like the feel of it. But when I'm actually doing it, I don't love it. I just don't. But I know that I need something. And so yeah, it's kind of a love-hate for me. And I think it is that way,
Crazy.
honestly, for a lot of people that run. They either love it or they hate it, or they have a
Yes.
love-hate with it.
It's crazy because Steph, when I did a 5K or 10K at
10K.
Disney. And I went to see her sister the year before. And then the next year I was like, I'm inspired. I'm going to do this. And I was probably 250 pounds back then, at least when I did this damn thing. And she was like, you'll never catch me running. I will never do it. I will always be your cheerleader, but it's not happening. Because we were trying to, okay, maybe next year, Steph. And she's like, no, absolutely not. Doing 12 damn 5Ks a year.
She told
I
that
was
story.
adamant.
I remember you saying that stuff. You literally, she said these exact same things. She was like, the hell I am. I'm not
Absolutely
doing that
not.
shit.
No, you all look miserable. Everybody crossing that finish line looks, even my husband, who is like fit and runs and loves to run, he's like 6.5 minute mile, looks miserable crossing that finish line. Every time we get race photos back, I'm like, ugh, no, that looks awful. And every single person looks like they hate it. I'm like, why would I ever want to do that? And now here I am. I'm
Well,
like,
and it
There
makes
you are.
sense because you're a data person. Like you can see your time, you can see that your time is better. You can see where you ranked because you're always looking like where you ranked and what place you got and this and that and whatever. And I'm just, I'm not that way. And so it's like, I just want to go lift weights.
right.
Now, like, sure. Yeah.
You got to just find what works for you,
Yeah. Well, the last thing that we'll quickly touch on, I know your feelings on it, but I do specifically want to ask. So we're going to go into supplements quickly because I know how you feel about supplements, and I totally agree. But one supplement in particular, magnesium, and I've been hearing kind of some buzz around magnesium for sleep, but also just like why it's important. And I guess do we get enough of it in food? Is that a supplement that we should take? And I know you're going to say like supplements are no substitute for all of those pillars that we just talked about.
Right.
But when you are in a groove and you're getting all of these things done, is something like magnesium important to take? Because from what I understand, it helps you with your sleep routine and getting better sleep and some other things. But any supplements at all, just like I'll let you kind of talk your talk about supplements.
Yeah. I mean, no, and that's the thing. I think, supplements, for a long time, it was like supplements, everyone's doing supplements. And then everyone took a step back because they realized, oh, they're not regulated. Do we really need supplements? You got to be careful, then with like professional and like collegiate athletes and beyond, you got to be really careful with what you're putting in your body. But for the average person, I would say, in general, yeah, if you're eating a pretty well-balanced diet in general, hey, usually you don't typically have to take a specific, mineral like that. However, magnesium does play a role in almost majority of the chemical reactions that happen in our body. So it's a very critical mineral, important for bone density. It's important for heart contraction. It helps actually with vitamin D as well, as calcium does. And so they all play a role together. And so they're finding that the diet in general, the American diet, is not as high in magnesium, especially if you don't eat like seeds and, green leafy vegetables and things like that, we should be eating, right? But that we don't eat a ton of. And so my thought on it is, if you do have struggles with sleep, it has been shown to be helpful for inducing, us to get sleepy basically, and get a better night's rest. It's not a terrible thing. I would just be cautious, like, more is not always better. Because I have people that take, come to me, they're like, I'm taking, 1,000 milligrams, and I'm just like, you don't need that much. Like, I think a typical standard dose for magnesium is about 200 to 400 milligrams is the standard dose for magnesium supplementation. And so I would just say, always talk to your doctor first. It's always important to have labs drawn so you can take a look to make sure there aren't any deficiencies present that we need to address. Then it is definitely warranted. But for people that have sleep deficiencies or they're having issues with, like I mentioned, bone density, I know my mom actually was prescribed it because she has AFib, she has heart issues, and so her doctor told her to take magnesium for better heart contractions and things like that. So it definitely plays a role. And so I would just say, if you need it and it plays a role in, the goals that you're trying to achieve and it's not excessive, and I would just say this too, assess a start and end time. A lot of people just start taking supplements. Oh, I've been taking this since I was 20. And I'm like, you don't need that, or you don't need that anymore. So assess whether it's necessary, assess what's the proper dose, make sure that you talk to your doctor about it. And then I'll just say too, lastly, when I educate my clients on supplements, I teach them to try to pick supplements that have the NSF label on them. That means they've been third-party tested for purity and potency, or informed choice is another label you'll see on supplements. And those just mean that they are not just some guy didn't make it in their garage and start putting a label on, which unfortunately can happen. So you want to make sure that they're safe and they have what they say is on the bottle, basically.
Yep. That sounds kind of
And if
where I
you're,
thought you were going to go with it, but I wanted to hear it from myself too.
Yeah.
and the same thing you said earlier is consistency. Like for me, I have bought supplements or vitamins or whatever in the past, and I eat them. I take them for like 2 weeks, and then I just don't do it anymore because I'm
Right.
not a person. So I've just told myself, unless the doctor tells me I have to take something, at my yearly checkup, my blood work was perfect. I'll go back next year. I'm not doing it because I know I'm not going to do it. So why put that pressure on myself?
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And as a
Absolutely.
weight loss surgery patient, I have no choice but to
Right.
take. And I will say that no matter what, I may fall off on exercise for a couple of weeks. I may fall off on not meal prepping. I have always been really good with taking my vitamins. I have a really good system. And so that is, look, if nothing else, I can pat myself on the back for that. So I always have that going for me. Of my pillars, my bariatric pillars, I get my vitamins in. So maybe next week it won't be water, it'll be something else, but there's, when I'm juggling all the plates in the air, I'm constantly keep my vitamin plate up there. So
And I'll just mention that too real quick for bariatric clientele, is that, remember, you are taking a bariatric, your supplements, whether that's a bariatric formulated multivitamin or it's all, a host of different ways that you meet it, maybe a standard adult multi with vitamin D and B12 and calcium separate, however you do it. Everyone's protocol will be a little bit different. But I just like to point out to folks that oftentimes you're getting more than you think, because if you're taking a bariatric multivitamin or however your protocol recommends it, and then you drink vitamin waters, you drink protein shakes that are fortified with vitamins and minerals, a lot of the things that we take into our diet have these added. And so with the exception of those that have a deficiency for whatever reason, oftentimes we do get more than we think. And so again, what I would just tell folks is get out your bottles that you're currently taking for my bariatric clientele and just make sure you're not double and tripling up on certain vitamins or minerals, because that happens. And I do see sometimes we have labs that are through the roof because they're getting it in multiple different sources. So that's all I just caution on that.
Is it true, because I've heard like, oh, well, you just take whatever vitamins and whatever your body doesn't need, you will like dispose of, like pee out or whatever. Like I've heard that, like you can't overdose on stuff. Is that true or not true?
Just the B vitamins. So B vitamins are water soluble. The fat soluble vitamins A, D, E, and K do build up in fat tissue. And so those can increase over time, more quickly if you're taking higher doses. But I still have folks that have high levels of pyridoxine or B12 because they're taking their bariatric multi, then they take a separate B12, then they're taking a B complex. Their calcium from certain brands have added B vitamins as well. And so all of a sudden, when you're taking a high level chronically day in and day out, it does build up. And so we can see labs start to trend upwards over time if you're taking them in high doses every single day. So I've had some folks that we've had to, the first thing one of my very first things I do in my nutrition assessment with clients is we go through what they're taking, and then I review them to make sure we're not doubling and tripling up on certain nutrients so that we don't have that issue.
Yeah,
but it takes a while for that to happen. Sorry.
Yeah, and before I switched over to ProCare Health has the 1-a-day vitamin, and I switched over to that. But before that, I was taking like I don't know, a regular women's multivitamin, and I knew as a bariatric patient I needed the extra iron and B12. So I was taking the multivitamin, I was taking an iron pill, I was taking a B12. Well, sure enough, my blood work, everything was great, but my B12 was too high, my iron was too high. And I was like, well, hot damn, I got too much. So then I switched over to ProCare Health, and I just take the one a day, and I've been fine ever since. And that is like, I take that and then a calcium supplement, and that's all that I need and then the calcium is a piece of chocolate. I mean,
Yeah.
hello.
Hello,
So I'm
win-win.
good to go with that. That's a little snacky poo for later.
Right.
But that's all I have to take now, and my blood work's been great, so can't complain.
Yeah. Yeah. I think the less that you have to take, the better, because then you know
Yes.
exactly what you're taking in. So it's
Exactly.
always helpful.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, awesome. Unless anyone else has anything else that they want to add, that's kind of where I wanted to go with it, just hitting on those pillars. And I think we all agree, pick your one thing, start slowly, build up. And it's not going to happen overnight. And, you know, if we just take those little baby steps versus trying to take it all on at once. What's the saying? How do you eat an elephant? One bite at a time. Right. Yeah. So
Oh, I
it's
like
one
it.
bite at a time, this bad boy.
So true.
So how can people find you if they are, obviously they know where to find us because they're listening, but
We're
if they
here.
want to try to
Sure.
find you, where can they get you?
Oh, sure. Yeah. So you can find me on social media. So I have an Instagram account. It's Active Bariatric. I have a YouTube channel, which is where you can watch all of my podcasts. My podcast is called the Active Bariatric Nutrition Podcast, and I release typically once a week or once every 2 weeks on Mondays. And you can go to my website as well to learn more about my one-to-one services, and that's activebariatricnutrition.com. And then lastly, I have a Facebook community. If you want to join our Facebook community, it's just the Active Bariatric Nutrition Community.
Awesome.
Yep.
That's
And we'll make sure we'll have all your links and everything listed below for anyone that wants to check it out, because that's a lot to absorb all at once. But I mean, thank you so much, Kim. You already know I'm a huge fan. And we got to hang out together when we were in Texas.
That's right. And we get to
Yeah.
run together. I loved every second of it. And it's a pleasure. And I'm so glad to just be able to talk with both of you. And Justy's first time I get to meet you today. So thank you so much. I really appreciate your time.
And next year is in your backyard, next year's retreat. And so I would love to try to get Justy out to a retreat. It's in San Diego next year, Justy.
Yes.
So
I'll be going to San Diego in May for my surgery. And then actually I have a girlfriend who I met at the body pump that I was doing certification that is from San Diego. So so that'll be good. That'd be fun.
Yeah. So the retreat's in San Diego next year. And I was like, I haven't talked to Justy about it, but I was like, I bet I could get Justy to go, because while you haven't had surgery, it's my thoughts and feelings. Bariatrics are bariatrics. We all fight the same fight. And I think you would find use out of all of that. So short of being cut open, we're the same.
Yep.
What month is it typically?
November.
Oh, cool. Awesome. Yeah. Alrighty.
I'll give you the deets.
Thank you so much. This is really fun.
Yep.
Thank you.
Thanks for joining us, Kim. You ladies have a great night.
You too.
All right.
All right.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.